Hey guys, and welcome back to the Minor Miners channel. Today I'm going to show you one of my favourite comic book series of all time, and Hillary is going to show you two of her favourite business books, Shoe Dog and Bad Blood. Ooh, this is slightly uncomfortable. Let's get this chair. Much better. So, today, as I told you, I'm going to show you my favourite comic book series, which is Bone. It's a brilliant series, and it's just because of the art, it's absolutely brilliant, and the way they foreshadow things with like the mood and stuff. When the mood's happy and everything, it seems a lot brighter here. And the way they do it, it seems realistic yet extremely comical, because you can have like emotions flying around your head, yet the details are really specific and it really sticks to me. And when I mean that they set the mood, it's kind of like slowly the background kind of changes. Like if the mood is getting darker, it slowly gets darker until like here it turns into just darkness, right? It's a lot of overshadowing, and they do things I really don't expect, and all in all the details are just great. There's around, I think, 9 books in this series, and also a Bone handbook and one called Tall Tales, which is about Smiley Bones, which you'll learn about if you read this, talking to his campers with stories, which is actually hilarious. And they've got a lot of really good humour with like irony and sarcasm. You know, it's really got a lot of wit, which I find absolutely hilarious. The story is about a species called bones, which is kind of like these little comical people, and they live in Boneville. One of the brothers, called Phony Bone, is a kind of like Scrooge McDuck. It's like a real money bag, and you know, does a lot of cons and schemes. So, because of his cons and schemes, when he runs for mayor, they are run out of Boneville. So, they end up stranded in the desert, and the brothers get separated. Now, let me remind you, there are 3 brothers in this story: Phone Bone, Phony Bone, and Smiley Bone. These 3, I think, represent the aspects of a personality. Phone Bone is kind-hearted and brave, and, you know, just a really good person. And Phony Bone is like greedy and, you know, not very brave, kind of cowardly. But all 3 characters really develop after a long time, and they seem to go really well. I haven't told you about the 3rd character yet, Smiley Bone. I think he's mainly there for comic relief, because like everything he says and do is hilarious. But there's some things that are quite sad in the books, but it always gets better. And there's a lot of, you know, kind of like connections and, you know, extra details in there. Like Phone Bone's obsession with Moby Dick, and how, you know, the phrase that it can put people to sleep actually works in this series, which just, you know, is really funny. Anyway, I seem to be ranting for a bit. Let me introduce Hillary.
Today I'll be talking about 2 books about business. One will be talking about a good example and the other a bad example. One thing I realized that when I'm reading business books is that sometimes theory is just really, really boring. So what I love to do is read more of a biography type of thing, where it describes an entrepreneur or the entire process of a startup and how it failed or succeeded. So let's start with one of my favorites, Bad Blood by John Carreyrou. That one is a description about Theranos, which was run by Elizabeth Holmes, and how bad decisions corrupted Theranos. For those of you who don't know, Elizabeth Holmes is known to be a pretty morally compromised entrepreneur who had created a startup called Theranos, which intended to check your blood with one drop. The problem with the company was that this technology just wasn't feasible, or at least the technology really isn't there yet, as when you get a drop of blood from your fingertip, the germs on the top of your finger will contaminate the blood. Elizabeth Holmes knew that to begin with, after she was pitching that to medical experts, but she kept on going for it, and eventually her web of lies got found out when it turns out that they took the blood and went to background testing in the background, in a secret lab behind a real thing, then put it out as a facade. It got bad to the point where people were being diagnosed with cancer when it didn't exist. And John Carreyrou wound up exposing the whole thing with the help of whistleblowers. Right now, Elizabeth Holmes and her former partner are being faced with a bunch of lawsuits, and they'll probably be going to jail soon. So I love this book because it was really full of intrigue, and it showed you how a bunch of morally fraught decisions can lead to the entire destruction of the company. Very fascinating read. I definitely recommend you check it out. So on the flip side, a good example. Another book which I've loved is Phil Knight's Shoe Dog. So it talks about Nike and the entire ascent of it, how it came to be, and why it reached this stage. What I realized was that Shoe Dog was very much a story about finding a way to be resilient and to stick through the trouble. Did you know that Nike first started out as reselling a Japanese brand? One of my favorite parts of the book is when they're describing the line of shoes they had. They had throw up, chuck up, run up. I especially like throw up and chuck up. So it describes how Onitsuka Tigers ditched Nike and how they were trapped on their own and how they had to be resourceful to initially come up with the idea of a waffle-sized shoe to make sure that the runner would be able to run more effectively. And it just describes how they went on this painful journey to get the first few users to getting the Olympic athletes to have it and into the company we know today. I love that book, especially due to how they talked about the struggles they went through, because usually when you see a startup, it's always about the glory, always about the IPO moment where they get a ton of money. But this really goes through the worst of times, how there was debt, how they nearly shut down, as well as the story about the iconic logo. I'm not going to give that away because it'll probably ruin the book, but here are two books that I absolutely loved.